Hi,
What's up, dude?
long time no talk.
Yeah, no, how you been?
Doing good. For
Yeah,
those listening, is for those listening and tuning in. I know we've had a little bit of a hiatus, but that is because Mike has had some important stuff happen in his life. Mike,
yeah, dude.
would you like to inform us what new thing has occurred?
Yeah, I had a vasectomy.
Not what I meant.
No, um, no, I had a brand new baby, dude. Brand new baby boy. I know we've been talking about it a little bit on the show, so I think some
Yeah,
people already knew.
right. But I mean, he's finally here though, right?
Oh, yeah, yeah. He's
Is what I'm saying.
he's here.
And
He's not
what
queer. Happy about it.
and what'd you name him?
Ronan.
So there was that like well I guess where's Ronan come from? Like what was the reason behind the name?
Oh, so my wife is very like Scottish and um Scottish and like I'm trying to think of the right word for it, like Anglo-Saxon maybe.
Hmm. Okay.
Celtic. And I am Japanese, so Ronin in Celtic is baby seal, and then
Oh,
Ronin in Japanese is obviously a samurai that lost its shogun or lost its like commanding person. It's like master. Like everyone
and
knows, like heard of Ronin.
The Japanese eat baby seals, so it's perfect.
Dude, it's all around perfect because I'm thinking about eating him, honestly.
Oh, yeah, just to gain his strength.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
this is why we can't be on YouTube. Uh,
we talk
uh,
about eating babies.
anyway, guys. Um, anyway, guys, welcome back. Welcome back to another episode of Admit Your Thoughts. Obviously, Mike is here with me, so I know we had a little bit of a break, but again, like I said, we had Mike's birthday. And it was also, the birth of his son. So,
Mm-hmm.
uh, thanks for bearing with us, and sorry we kept you waiting so long, but that is obviously much more important than putting content out.
Yeah.
But being said,
And
speaking of
remember
putting,
that.
oh, go ahead.
I want to say, and remember that. No company, no thing. Like, I heard some people talking a little bit. Like, they're like, oh, is work giving you time off? Quit that fucking job if they don't give you time off, bro. No one's going to care about you and your family except for you.
Yeah, I think that's a hard lesson for a lot of people to learn, and it was a really hard lesson for me to learn, especially growing up in a family where um, I subconsciously kind of learned from everyone else's actions that work kind of came first. That you've got to find a way to put your family first, and there's nothing more important. That CEO, that boss, I don't care how tight you are with them,
Mm.
they're not going to be there for you in the same way that your family will. They're not going to
No,
raise your kid,
they're not going
so
to be there for you, period. It doesn't matter
yeah,
how cool you are with your boss. At the end of the day, a job's a job. Your family's your
right,
family, and always prioritize your family first. Because
right.
like the only person that's going to remember that you worked late nights and worked overtime and all these things is your kids. No one else will remember that in 20 years.
Exactly. That boss is going to look at that as an expectation. Your kids are going to look at that as a punishment.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
um, anyway, yeah. So that being said, dad advice out of the way. See, look at you with your dad advice already out of the gate.
Oh, dude, I'm here
Look
for
at you, so
it.
proud. Yeah. So anyway, as we kind of roll into this crazy week, there's been a lot going on since our last episode. Heck, there's been a lot going on in this last week or so.
Yeah.
Uh, and we're going to try to cover a few things, but I think we're going to start. We've gone pretty heavy some of our last episodes, so I think we're going to start off kind of a little more lighthearted with this. So, as most of you guys know, being gun guys following the show, we basically just had the Comic Con of Guns of ShotShow. There's, in my opinion, this was one of the better shot shows in the last couple of years. There's been some really cool stuff coming out from a lot of different companies. There's some companies that still, again, every year that come out with stuff, and you're like, nobody asked for this. But
Dude,
yeah,
my favorite. Those are my favorite things.
you're right. So yeah, well, let's just kind of dive on into it, man. Like, what excited you this year? What gets your blood pumping about ShotShow?
Ooh, I think it is definitely going to be the MP7 clone by PSA.
Yeah, yeah. I there's that's yeah.
Dude, tell me
I
it's not like the coolest fucking thing in the world.
I absolutely. I know they said it's going to be a little bit before it comes out, and that right now it's just kind of a 3D printed concept model that they were talking about, but well, over their Rock 57 chassis. But dude, that thing, I think it's the coolest thing that PSA's come up with in a long time. I think it's the coolest thing one of any companies really come up with in a while, and I'm kind of surprised no one else has done that.
I'm gonna be 100% with you too. Like honestly, I don't even like 5.7, but I'm buying that.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Like, see, that's my thing. The biggest thing that got me is they mentioned that they were working with Franklin Armory to get the binary trigger for one of them. Because, me and a couple guys at the shop, and I know I've had this conversation with you, I've kind of had to talk that, like, if you're going to make a PCC or like a sub gun in 5.7 or in 9 mil, even, like, it really is pointless as a true semi auto. Like, the whole benefit
my
is
buddy
being
Joe is
able.
actually on Discord right now while we're recording this. He's just waiting for me to get done with this episode.
Yeah.
He's the fastest gun in the West, dude. This man can pull the trigger.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You can pull the trigger fast and get that gun going out there, but that's the whole point, though, of that, right? Of a sub gun is to get that gun
as fast as possible, just lighting it up. I'm talking full
right.
blown.
So like
as fast as burst fire as you can.
Putting that into one of those, putting that trigger in that system, I think hands down fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, me and you were talking about that, right? The PCC, like when I was obviously, hypothetically speaking, not true if they come for me legally. I did not carry a firearm on my college campus, but when I would hypothetically carry a firearm onto my college campus, it was a little PCC Glock with like a foldable stock on the back of it. And that thing with a Franklin trigger would be the shit. Like a little tiny PCC Glock. That's the coolest fucking thing in the world, dude. That's so cool.
That's what I'm saying, man. I think that's super awesome. And the one thing I think will be interesting, and I think my biggest hold up with 5.7 is just the price versus the effectiveness of it, because a lot of people don't realize, like, when in the 5.7 round, it could pierce soft armor, all that kind of jazz. Well, like, one, that was soft armor technology in the 80s when it was developed, as well as and it was developed for Russian soft armor, which was even further behind. But that was also
it was Russian soft armor in the 80s, so that's basically 50s armor.
Right. So I mean, like, we're looking at very ineffective armor that it was designed for to go up against. But on top of that, again, like, the big issue for me is that the standard 5.7 round, that the NATO stuff is loaded to a different spec and is a different bullet than the civilian side. So
it's completely different.
Yeah, the civilian stuff is not loaded as hot. It doesn't have as much velocity, and it generally doesn't have the armor piercing capability. And to be able to, it's not impossible to find that stuff, but a lot of it is controlled by the retailers who don't like to sell it openly to the civilian markets. And when they do, they charge an extreme premium for it. And 5.7's always kind of been expensive. It's usually been around, 50 some odd dollars a box, just a little over $1 a round.
You're talking to the guy who owned a PS90, bro. I fucking know.
Right. So that's what I'm saying is I think it'll be interesting to see if, with the increase in availability of 5.7 weapons, if that means we'll see a higher demand for ammunition and potentially lower that price down, kind of how we saw with 300 Blackout. Whenever a 300 Blackout first came out, it was ridiculously expensive, and it's still more than 5.56. It's still kind of spendy, but it's come down a ways.
For a while there, not the subsonic, the sonic version 300 Blackout was cheaper than 5.56 there for a minute.
Oh yeah, like some 124 grains or something.
Yeah, I was finding it cheaper. I was like, wow.
Yeah, that's a good point. But yeah, I'd be curious to see, because realistically, with the stuff that's the normal ammunition that you'd find if you went to go shoot at a gun range, for example, it's basically spicy 22 Magnum that's overpriced. And so
you're talking about the 5.7?
Yeah, the 5.7.
Yeah.
So for me, like, from a defensive use, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, where it's like, well, why not just do something like similar to that, like you were saying with that Glock chassis, or like a Flex Defense, something similar size, with an actual Vectors cartridge that you can get like a G9 ammo in, or some like Federal hollow points or something, and have a pretty effective carbine type, or like PUW type deal. So I think it'll be interesting. I think it'll be interesting to see how this plays out, and to see what if ammo companies hop on the hype and start coming out with good stuff.
I'm excited just for good stuff in general, and also for the ammo companies to realize, like, hey, we've been showing them an arm and a leg for so long, so let's
Yeah.
finally see some price drops and get competitive again. That's what I'm really waiting for. If you wait for that to start training, you're stupid because
Oh yeah.
if you
That's like
think
the equivalent of waiting to buy a suppressor because you're hoping that like the Safe Hearing Act goes through.
I was gonna say even it's the equivalent of just like going, oh, I'm not gonna drive my vehicles anymore because gas is too expensive. I'm just gonna wait for
Yeah,
gas to come down. It doesn't make any sense.
exactly. No, I think there's some cool stuff out there. Personally, I just because I own a Scorpion, I think it's kind of cool that they came out with a rimfire version.
Yeah.
I know that a lot of people don't get excited about that. I think it's kind of cool. I just happen to have a CZ Scorpion, so it was kind of like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah. Well, I'm a big PCC guy, but I'm also smart when it comes to like what I'm going to invest my money in, especially if it's coming to a permanent thing like that, like a PCC, something I'm going to defend myself with, something I'm going to carry, something I'm going to actually defend myself with. I want to make sure
Yeah.
I train with it a lot. So a lot of people were saying like, oh, why didn't you get the Raider chassis or anything like that? And the reason why I didn't do that was because Sig mags and things like that are significantly more expensive than Glock mags.
Oh yeah.
So my
Yeah.
PCC runs Glock mags. If my
Yeah.
B&T ran normal B&T mags, I wouldn't own it.
Oh
One of
yeah.
the only reasons why I bought that PCC was for the reason as I shoot Glocks, I have a lot of Glocks, I have a lot of Glock mags. There's compatibility there.
I think that's something that's overlooked quite a bit in the gun industry, and it's something like, especially by the gun consumer, is
Yeah.
that when you're buying a platform, it's like buying a car. Like, is the car expensive? Yes. But you know what's more expensive? All of the maintenance, upkeep, and maintaining that car. All of the gas you're going to put in it, buying tires every couple of years, getting your tires rotated, changing
Yeah.
your brakes, all the oil stuff,
I
any motor work, like all of that. And the same thing with a gun. Right? You buy the
it could be very easily compared to owning a Lamborghini. A lot of people say like when you buy a Lamborghini, the expense of it, the being expensive owning a Lamborghini isn't buying the $1 million Lamborghini. It's the $3 million you have to pay to maintenance that vehicle.
Right. Yeah, exactly. It's so like, let's say you go out and you buy a new gun, right? For example, let's say you're an AR guy and you want to go switch over to it. You want to buy an AK, right? Okay,
Mm-hmm.
cool. So you go spend, and I'm just throwing money out, dollar values out there.
Yeah,
So you
throw
spend
numbers out there. I get you.
eight or $900 on an AK, right?
Mm-hmm. That
I
seems
don't,
like a pretty realistic price. Hey
right.
Joe, how
Like,
much did you pay for your AK?
uh, well, I mean, I bought mine from a friend, so it's an older model, so I don't think that really counts. But I mean, because I got it off of him for a couple $100, so I'd say like, uh,
Oh,
you know,
got you.
let's
So
let's say we're
I'm sorry.
talking
I
like,
called in a friend here. He just paid $1,800 for his AK PCC.
what one did he get? Did he get it from like Kalashnikov?
No, it's Palmetto State.
1,800 seems a
Yeah.
little high for them. Anyway,
Oh, it's
what?
IWI. IWI.
Oh, so he got a Galil.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
but so regardless, let's go. Let's say you pay 800-900 bucks for an AK, right? Well,
Mm-hmm.
now you got to go buy mags, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's say even you go find some surplus steel mags. Well, just to get 10 of them, you're probably talking 15-20 bucks a piece. So that's a couple $100 there, and that's just 10, right? Then you got to go turn around and buy all the ammunition. So you go buy 1,000 rounds. That's a couple hundred more bucks. Then any accessories or any accoutrement you want to put on the rifle. So you add up very quickly, and realistically, if you go with some of the mindset that we've had before, where I don't want just 10 magazines, I want 20, 30, 40, 50 plus magazines.
As you should. They're wear items.
Exactly. Or I think, again, I've said this before, my I can stop buying magazines number is 100, right? If
Yeah.
you have 100 magazines for that platform, right? Then I think you're good for a while because you got plenty to work on, wear out, whatever, and you can
Mm-hmm.
focus on getting other things. I wouldn't stop buying magazines, but I would say if there's a time to stop and you feel like you're like, okay, I'm good.
When they're no longer on sale, you can be like, okay, I don't need to buy them.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. Um, so I mean, I've got over 100 for my AR platforms, but I've also got multiple ARs and different setups and different ammo and just all kinds of things. But let's say getting into that again, like it gets really expensive whenever you're trying to switch into a new platform, especially when you're in the pistol market, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
working in a prime example for me, working in the gun industry, a lot of companies allow you to do spiff programs. And basically what this is if you sell enough stuff, basically like you sell an item, you get a certain number of points towards it. At the end of the year, you can redeem those points for free stuff from that company, including firearms. So like I, for example, did one of these programs, and I have an one of the 2022 FN high powers coming out, right? I have one of those coming my way eventually.
Ooh, I didn't know that.
So yeah, so I'm pretty stoked about that. However, downside, the magazines are like $59 a piece.
Ooh.
Right. So this might be more of a fun range gun for me than anything I take seriously. It's just like from a financial aspect of that, because like all my Glocks, I have ammo cans full of Glocks. I have Glocks that are loaded, Glock mags that are loaded. I have Glocks mags that are unloaded. I've got Glock mags coming out, one fish, two fish, Glock mags, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've got them in all of my kit. I mean, I'm finding I find mags all over my house, right? And or I dig through a bag. Oh, hey, Glock mag. Um, $60 a mag. Going back to like that's kind of the SIG thing. If I want to get 10 mags, that's $600. And that's no ammo, no cleaning kit, no nothing. That's just magazines. And so it's one of those things where you got to keep that in mind. So I like seeing companies come out with stuff where it's already compatible with everything else. Your companies are being smart about like companies, that make PCCs that take Glock bags because they understand that like, hey, everybody else is running Glock bags.
Yeah, there's a reason why we gotta run
Yeah.
Glock mags. Yeah.
But speaking of more ShotShow stuff, dude, what is it with everybody making a lever action this year?
Dude, I've been wondering that too. It's so dumb. I don't know if they're doing more like outreach to like places like California or something because like let's be honest here, the gun control is
Right.
run full rampant. Like there's a lot of states that have a lot of gun control coming as we speak. But
And
the
I
lever
kind of
have been
go ahead.
crazy.
Yeah, I kind of wonder if that's what it is more like placating towards states like California, like Washington, who semi-autos are either not an option or very hard to get to, and you want to give them something other than like a Marlin or a Rossi, just a basic
Yeah.
lever gun. And like granted, Aero Precision's lever gun, if I were to buy one, I would probably buy one of theirs because they've got some cool looking lever gun stuff that's kind of a hybrid between like old west / tactical, but it doesn't
Yeah.
look gross. It looks pretty sweet. Do I want to go spend a bunch of money to buy a 30-30 and then go buy a bunch of 30-30 and everything I want to trick that rifle out? No, not really, not right now. You
No.
know,
Oh, not really.
but but yeah, I mean, but I just still think it's cool. I think it's a great platform. It's not for me, but I think for someone like if you're a younger guy in growing, coming up in Washington where you can't get semi-auto rifles now, and that's really what you're limited to, I would be stoked for some cool lever guns until things change. And so I do think it is kind of interesting to see that and see some of the stuff that's coming out of there.
Yeah. Interesting and also I think kind of stupid, but I mean,
Well,
just...
if we want to talk about stupid, what I think is stupid and what I would be terrified to shoot, honestly, is that Taurus has come out with a bolt action rifle.
I did not see that.
Yeah. To be honest, I can't remember now. I can't remember if it was Taurus that made it or if it was just a company that was owned by Taurus, but I think it was Taurus itself that made it. It was coming out with a bolt gun. And I'm like, dude, I don't trust their pistols enough. I am not putting a rifle caliber Taurus that close to my face.
Don't be scared, dude.
So yeah, no. Some of the things I think that were kind of cool to see was like going back to PSA is they had PSA this year did like probably one of the best presentations I think out of all of the people there. Whether or not the guns wind up working or they're just crap, whatever, it doesn't matter. The presentation that they provided I thought was awesome. They're I think a lot of people forget that ShotShow is a concept show. And a lot of people get used to being like, oh, I'm just going to buy this tomorrow. And a lot of stuff isn't available tomorrow. A lot of it is like, hey, these are concepts that we're working on to get people excited about future things. And I think PSA did that perfectly. with launching out their 15 different guns that they were going to do, and having people vote on them and being like, look, we're going to make some of these, we're just going to make anyway. Some of these we want to see which one you guys want first. Their idea of they call it the 570, so it's like their modular shotgun platform,
Mm-hmm.
looks super cool. And kind of a learn how to build it yourself shotgun, which I think would be cool to get people interested in doing that. I don't think a lot of people mess around with shotguns. Um, the Jackal platform that they have, I think, is pretty interesting, on seeing that they're doing bullpup versions, a 308 version, a 9 mil version, a couple different variants, as well as like a Jackal AK hybrid. I mean, they're coming out with all kinds of stuff. They got some of their dagger line. They're expanding to be tactical 45, tactical 10 mil. I think I saw a few other things. I mean, they just put out a ton of different things, which I think is really cool to see
I didn't
from a
see,
company like that. What was that?
I didn't look at a lot of the Palmetto State stuff. I just looked at like the MP7 and then things like that. I should check out more of what they're releasing.
Yeah, the MP7 thing, I think, is really what captured everyone's attention, and I think is going to be like the big thing for everybody, because I mean it's pretty slick.
Cool as funk.
Yeah, I do think the Beretta Tomcats that they're coming out with now too, those things are pretty cool. As far as just like a fun gun, not a very practical gun, the Beretta Tomcats, that little flip up barrel 32 and 22 that they make.
Yeah.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
they kind of made like a super Gucci'd out tactical one that they were talking about, that they showed off at ShotShow, that was more of just a concept gun than it was anything else. And double stack magazine, comped, optic ready. I mean, it was just a cool little fun gun. And there's a lot of cool stuff like that I think is coming down the pipes. They did. It looks like they made some more tactical furniture for the Beretta 1301 series of guns and the A300 to kind of make them more
A lot of shotgun.
Benelli
A lot of shotgun.
Benelli clone
Not a
shotguns.
lot of shotgun stuff this year.
Yeah, again, I kind of wonder if that has to play with the gun control thing a little bit more. If the market is seeing a spike in gun and like lever actions and shotguns,
Mm-hmm.
because of stuff like that happening in other states.
Yeah.
If that's kind of where they're shifting to kind of shift with it.
Yeah. You almost wonder if they know something that we don't.
Oh, I guarantee they do, and I kind of have a running theory that is actually something that they do. Whether it's that they see these states go through this and they see that it's an election year and they're like, all right, we got to make stuff that people get excited for, when they can't buy certain things, or if they know that, I mean, they have lobbyists for those people. They've got to know stuff's coming down the pipe. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. Someone
You
warned.
just cover your bases, contingency type stuff.
Yeah. Someone's got to warn someone. Like, there's no way that they go in there blind and they're just like, oh yeah.
Yeah. I will say one of the most disappointing companies out of all of this, and disappointing for the last couple of years in firearms design, personally, in my opinion, is Smith and Wesson. They did release their first lever action gun in like forever, and they made a big deal out of it, and it's a cool looking gun. It's a beautiful looking gun and everything. They're going to have some interesting calibers.
It's beautiful. Yeah.
But they just haven't done a whole lot of original stuff in a long time. I mean, they've basically just been copying Kel-Tec's homework for a hot minute.
Yeah.
They made their own version of the DP12. They made their own version of a lot of Kel-Tec's firearms. They made that folding carbine. It's kind of like the Sub 2000 but sideways. They just, I feel like they don't really have a whole lot going on in the R&D over there.
Yeah. You don't think so, huh?
No, I mean, well, that, and then like Springfield, they're like, hey, we just did the same model of gun we've had before, but slightly different. They just now have the TRP and more calibers and more colors. And it's like, hey, it's the exact same gun.
Hey, do you want the same exact fucking thing?
Right. Or that, or just I'm tired of companies and I know I'm a Glock guy, so I'm guilty of this. But it's like, I'm tired of companies literally just putting an optic on a gun and being like, we made it different. We made a new thing. And you're like, no, you just made it what everybody else asked you for from the get-go.
Yeah. Yeah. That's just like everyone bullshitting about and bitching about fucking optics and shit. And then everyone's running red dots now. And it's just like, oh, yeah. Every other company's like, oh yeah, we're hopping on that. We made this ourselves. We are the innovators of this.
Yeah. Well, that's like there was a guy that was at ShotShow. I can't remember who it was, but he was like, If you don't run an optic, it's like it's 2024. If you don't run an optic on your pistol, you're tactically Amish.
You're ta- you're ta-
And I was like, he's got a point, man. He's got a point. And then then I felt bad because my only pistol with optics is my bedside gun, which is my 34 with an RMR.
You
Everything else is
serious?
yeah, dude, and nothing else is cut.
Dude,
You know,
kid.
my carry guns my carry gun's a 26, which is just irons. My 19, when I bought my 19, it was a Gen 5 and they didn't have the MOS out yet. And then yeah, I mean, like then my 1911 is not optic cut because it's a 1911, and then my 92X is old school. So I've got a lot of irons. I've thought about getting my 26 milled because I think having a 26 with an optic on it would be actually pretty sweet. My wife's gun's got an optic on it. She's got her 365 X, and she actually just got the little fanny pack that Sig makes for the little fanny pack holster they make from Jerry Mitchell daughter. Can't remember what her name is, but like Lena or something. Anyway, it's a pretty cool little fanny pack holster, and
Yeah.
she digs it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I think there's a few other things at ShotShow that were pretty cool. I can't remember all of them, to be honest, off the top of my head.
Yeah.
But I think that we are seeing a little bit more innovation and a little bit more like cool stuff coming out. Like I actually kind of got excited I haven't been excited to like buy a new gun in a little bit. And I kind of got excited at ShotShow to be like, all right, there's some cool stuff coming out pretty soon.
There's a little something.
Yeah. So it was kind of cool to see that. But
yeah.
That was kind of on the lighter side of things. And I think I didn't really want to like dive too hard into it, but I feel like we kind of do have to address the elephant in the room with kind of current events a little bit,
Yeah.
Well, if you weren't following along with ShotShow, I feel like that's okay that's justified to be okay because we had a bunch of other crazy stuff happen this week.
Oh, boy.
So yeah, the memes have been insane. If you've been living under a rock in the last week, we had the whole Texas border debacle, where Governor Abbott of Texas basically sent the Texas National Guard with armed up, sent them down to the border, kicked out the border patrol, and told them, go home. We're taking over now. You guys suck at doing your job. So they went and they did it. They took over the border and started putting up razor wire and trying to slow down the all the illegal immigrants coming across the border.
Yeah.
Well, government didn't like that, so they sent it up to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court ruled 5-4. Nope, you got to stand down. The border patrol's got to be able to come in and they can take down defenses while we figure this out. And basically, Texas was like, that defeats the whole purpose. No, we're not doing that. And so, in defiance, they put up they're like, we're going to put up razor wire even harder now. So they put up more razor wire in defiance of this.
I respect the pettiness. Respect the pettiness.
Oh, exactly. 100%. And then meanwhile, they put out a letter basically saying, screw the Supreme Court decision. Doesn't matter. The Constitution's the highest law of the land. And you guys are forgetting the fact that the federal government's job is to protect our borders and the state's safety. Not only are you not doing that, but you're actively taking part in this human trafficking. Mm-hmm. So we're ignoring all of this and we're going to do our job. And then over like the next 2-3 days, half the country sides with him. 25 governors put letters out and say, or agree with Governor Abbott's letter and like, we stand with Texas. And then at first it was just like word of mouth and like, okay, yeah, we're there and we support you. But then it continued to escalate to where, people were sending state troopers, law enforcement, National Guard, material support, financial support. I mean, I think out of the 25, I think there's most of them have sent some type of law enforcement assistance down to Texas. I think 10 or 11 of them have sent National Guards. Other states, I mean, of the ones who haven't, they're working on trying to or figuring out who and when and where to send them down. And funny enough, I just found out this morning, I guess like the Border Patrol Union just came out and said like they actually disagree with the Supreme Court and side with Texas. So you've got the Border Patrol, the Texas National Guard, National Guards from 10 other states, and literally half the country, all Republican governors coming together and being like, yeah, we're not doing this.
I didn't know that
And so,
part.
yeah, so it's been interesting to see because, like, um, I think it was yesterday or the day before, Biden basically gave them an ultimatum, was like, hey, you have until today to knock it off, or otherwise there'll be consequences. Well, it's after that, and there's no consequences, so nothing has happened yet. And, you know,
Yeah.
no one, they haven't done anything. And I think for me, it's been kind of interesting watching this. Everyone was talking like, oh, civil war, oh, who's going to do the shooting? And, you and I were talking offline about this, about how this is either going to be
A huge
the
waste.
start of something.
Yeah.
What was that?
It's either going to be a huge waste of time, or
Right. Or, potentially could get, it's the opposites, right?
yeah.
This could be a big nothing burger and we all get excited for nothing, or we meme ourselves into a civil war, right? And, it's like I'm watching all this stuff unfold, and for me, it was really awesome to see kind of all those states come together and do that.
Yeah.
I honestly didn't expect that. I honestly didn't think we still had that kind of unity left to unite behind a common cause like that, which really did kind of make it nice for me to see.
Yeah.
But
Hey, Joe, you want to do Tarkov?
one of the things I thought was interesting with this, though, that I kind of wanted to talk to you a little bit about on a little bit heavier topic is, should we, as Minutemen type lifestyle people,
Yeah.
let me rephrase this question. I see a lot of people like almost itching to go to war, right?
Yeah.
Not with a foreign power, not with Russia, not with China, but with ourselves. I see a bunch of people, our age, between 18 to 30, young men who they see this potential here, and then the whole talk of civil war and everything. They see everything that's going on in the world, and I feel like they long for it. Like they want things to go kinetic, because I think there's a thing out there where I see two sides of it. I see some people saying, well, if it's going to become a problem, let it become a problem now, so it won't become my children's problem. And I see the other side where I think some people are romanticizing war and thinking that, hey, if we can get if we can fight our way through this and we can fix things through battle and through war, and winning that war and putting our people in power, then why not?
Yeah.
And so, as a Minuteman type person, should we be so ready to fight?
That's a hard one. It's a hard one to answer. In that context, depends.
Yeah, in that context of, like, for me it's a little interesting. For me, it's interesting and a little sad, I think, to see that we've gotten to the point to where so many people are willing to go to war to kill our fellow Americans.
Yeah.
And I understand the frustrations that everyone has with the federal government, especially, and I'm right there with you. But I think that a lot of people too don't realize the brutality and reality of what a conflict like that would look like.
I think it would be more devastating and destructive than anyone could actually know. Anyone could put together in their heads how horrible that would really be in the end.
Yeah, I agree. I think that um, realistically, like, there would probably be some places that are fairly removed from it that might not experience violence on a daily basis, and then other parts of the country are going to be Ukraine style level warfare, war zones, where no man's lands and nothing. If it flies, it dies type stuff.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a crapshoot, as to, you can't predict the future. You won't know what those areas are, and so you might live in an area that you think's pretty good to go, and the next thing you know, you're in the middle of World War III, right on your front doorstep. Civil War II.
Yeah, and it could
But
be.
go ahead.
Okay,
Go ahead.
I said it could be anywhere. Like, you don't know what resource or what situation is going to land someone to fight there, or to keep on continuing to fucking
Yeah.
state one individual place. But would never know, you know.
Yeah, no, exactly. I think like where uh, I live in North Idaho. I'm about, a couple minutes from the border with Washington State. And one of the things I got to thinking about was I live in Idaho, but I work in Washington. And I was like, what if something like this happened? I was thinking about this. I was like, let's say that this conflict happens,
Mhm.
right? That doesn't just mean I get to stop paying rent. Mike had to leave to go take care of the babies. Baby started crying, so we're gonna finish this one up without him. Not too much longer though. This one will be a little bit short of an episode. But basically, to pick up where we left off, I live in Idaho and I work in Washington, and I think sometimes that, if this thing goes kinetic, right, I still got to go to work, right? I still have to go pay the bills. It doesn't, day one, it doesn't just immediately mean that all systems fail and I don't have to pay rent anymore. So what happens if you're in a situation like that, or if you live next to an area to where, you know, Idaho's pretty conservative, Washington is conservative in a lot of spots, but it's not everywhere. What happens if, it makes it to that Civil War part and we go kinetic? Like, how does that interaction happen? That it might not be a front line necessarily, but can I even cross the border to go to work? Would that become a problem? Would that become an issue? Would I have to choose which one to live in? Would I have to give up my job? These are all questions I think that are realistic questions, and also bring up, the idea of what's worth it to you. Is that job more important to you to put that money on the food on the table? Is your ideology or your viewpoint more important to you, to where you're willing to risk that as long as you stick by your ideals? It's a tough question, but I think what gets me is just kind of the realization that, like, how messed up things have gotten, that we have so many of us that are so willing to no, well, I guess maybe not willing is not the right word, but so hopeful for a civil war. I think we should look at it this way, right? I think, again, I use a lot of pop culture references because it's easy for me to relate things to movies because a lot of people have seen them. I think of the scene in The Patriot where Mel Gibson's character stands up and they're talking about, trying to convince him to join the Continental Army and to go to war. And he says, I will not fight. I'm an only, I'm these father's only parent, and their mother is gone. Who will care for my children when I go to war? And they make a good point. They say, wars are not only fought by childless men. And he says, this war will be fought in our homes, in our fields, in the streets. Our children will witness this war with their own eyes. They will learn of it with their own eyes. And I think that kind of resonates with a scenario like this. I think that we should all be prepared, as we talk about. We should be trained, we should be prepared, we should be armed, we should be ready to respond to anything, but that our actions should be responsive in nature in that regard. That we should not necessarily be the ones to throw that first punch. Granted, that is entirely situational, and I'm sure that there are plenty of situations where it would warrant a first strike. But I think that for me, it's one of those things that I don't want to cross that line unless it absolutely has to be crossed, if there is no other way. So for me, it's one of those things, again, where we have to be careful with how we do this, and we have to be careful with the way we approach these things. And I think that getting a little too gung-ho about it is not necessarily the right way. Another thing to think about, too, is if there is conflict, a lot of people think of the conflict, but they don't think of the afterwards. And I like to just propose this question. Let's say we do this. Let's say that, like the Texas thing went south and Civil War happened. What does victory look like? What does winning look like? Not like what's the picture for after the war, but I mean, like, no, like, how do you know you've won in the event of a civil war like that? Is it taking DC? I mean, it's 2024. Capital cities don't mean a whole lot. It's not like it was in the 1800s where you take a city, you control the government. They could run the country from anywhere. Is it taking out the right number of people, controlling certain resources, inflicting a certain number of defeats? Like, what is it? What does it look like to win? What would winning be? How do we know that it's over, that we've won? Is it if one side surrenders? How do we get them to surrender? Who's surrendering? Then, after that, let's say the war is won, let's say we've established what victory looks like and we've achieved that victory. How do you deal with the people on the other side? Think about it. If it's a civil war, think about like our last civil war, the North fighting the South. At the end of it, we had to figure out, how do we deal with the South? There's millions of people that we just spent the last 4 years declaring we're the enemy, civilians and military alike. How do we reintegrate them into our society? One, is that possible to reintegrate, right? Or do we just fight for a separation of states? Or or do we say, hey, okay, we've reestablished the United States. We've changed the rules to be more in favor to whichever side wins. Now we have to figure out, what do we do with those who lost? How do we deal with the ones who've picked up arms and fought against us? How do we deal with those who were just following orders? With those who lived there? What does that look like? Those are the hard questions that no one wants to think about, that no one wants to deal with, because they're not sexy, they're not cool, they're not running around in gears and kit. Everyone wants to focus on this idea that I think a lot of people think that an American Civil War 2.0 is just going to be Gettysburg and multicam. There's not going to be any brave, gallant speeches. There's not going to be like these heroes' heroic last stands. It's going to be the Balkans and Chechnya. It's going to be brutal street-to-street gang blood violence, blood feuds, Hatfields and McCoys, and not being able to, live your life normally. And even if you're in an area that's generally untouched, there's going to be goods you don't get, things you don't receive, financial and economic hardships beyond compare. So I think it's one thing that just seeing that, I like to see that there's enough people who are willing to stand up and believe in what they stand for and put their money where their mouth is, and I think that's important. But I think we should try to do everything in our power possible to try to fix our country before we have to go to violence. I think we should be prepared for violence should it happen. I think we should be prepared to deal with a situation like that if it ever arose, but that should not be our primary, that should not be our goal, that should not be our hope, is to have a civil conflict. Our hope should be to raise our children in peace, to be able to peacefully change the government to our needs, to have a peaceful revolution, a political revolution, and to do so through the powers that, the powers that we can get a hold of that are nonviolent. But that if it comes to it, we will stand ready if need be. But I think that's the key phrase there, is if need be. But yeah, I mean, I felt like we just kind of had to address that a little bit, give our 2 cents on it. I've had a few people reach out and ask kind of what our opinions were. And so, there you go. That being said, though, everybody, again, we really appreciate you guys reaching out and talking to us and reaching out to us outside of the podcast. Also, update. So our YouTube channel, which I will have linked in the description above, as well as links on our social media. You can also just look it up. It's Mid-Tier Thoughts. It's on YouTube. We are uploading all of our podcast episodes to YouTube as well. They generally come out about a week, a couple days to a week after they get generated on Spotify. So you do get them on Spotify first. Part of that is because we are starting to try to play with video editing a little bit and adding overlays and video elements. So, for example, talking about the ShotShow one, you'll probably, for now, the visuals will be some of the guns we've talked about, maybe some visuals of the maps, things like that. So we're kind of playing and getting into that a little bit, as well as I took an opportunity to film a video with another YouTuber and another person we've had on the podcast before, and did a video on retro surplus gear and retro rifles, kind of a breakdown and review. So that was our first actual video on YouTube. So we were pretty excited about that. Me and Mike are going to start working on putting out some more actual videos that go a little bit more in line with some of the stuff we've talked about. We're probably going to start with some of the older stuff we've talked about before and give you guys some visuals with that, and then hopefully roll into a format to where our videos kind of line up with the topics we've covered on the podcast. A lot more to come. Thank you guys so much for bearing with us as we make some of these changes and a little bit more time in between episodes. Again, new year, new stuff we're trying. Also, lots of new merch. A lot of new merch drops since the start of the year. So we've got some of our awesome shirts that have come out. We've got One of my personal favorites is it's basically it's a guy shooting a grape shot out of a cannon. It says utilize grape shot as the founding fathers intended. And we've got another one of my favorites, kind of a retro 80s vibe with an MP5 on it. It says ATF killed my vibe and my dog. Again, the links to those will be in the description. We've got some pretty cool designs out there that are coming out, so be tuned for that. We're always dropping new merch. We're always dropping new content, trying to roll into some new stuff, get into some video. Thank you guys so much for your support and for bearing with us all this time, and we'll catch you on the next one. Peace.